So my biggest inspirations on this track would probably have to be bands I've listened to for basically my whole life, like At the Gates, Emperor, Opeth, Soilwork. And you kind of hear a little bit of all those bands into one song a little bit. I mean, you have like proggy parts and black metal parts. But another big inspiration would be Reed's direction on how he wanted this whole album to go. He had a storyline pretty much fleshed out, as well as artwork. It just really helped me figure out how I wanted the song to sound.
My inspiration for the song was really just to serve the story. This song is the calm before the storm, opening Pandora's box, things like that, where the main character unleashes hell, but this is the actual unleashing of it.
The way we did the album was we just kind of let everybody create and come up with stuff. Jake had sent over like a whole song. He had already come up with the entire layout for the riffs and stuff, and so I just got to listen to Jake's part and build the song around that. He made it easy because he already had everything laid out the way it was going to be.
The most difficult part of this track would probably be the solo. I don't solo all that often. It was a little bit of a weird riff to solo over. I wanted to write a solo that fit the song. I didn't want to have a solo to just have a solo. I wanted to make sure it served the song well. It took me a lot of tries, but I like it.
I think this song was really smooth, to be honest. The song, again, so Jake, I don't know how much Jake wrestled with it, but by the time Jake brought it to us, it was fleshed out and really, really tight already. So
the refinement portion of projects is the most difficult for me, probably. Learning a lot of the stuff that Nate knows, seeing the process going through mixes. If Nate weren't here, it would be a different sounding project.
For every metal track ever, I'd have to say the low-end bass is probably the hardest thing to get to sit properly. Because especially for this genre, all the instruments, when you get 8 and 9 string guitars, 5, 6 string basses, they occupy close to the same frequency spectrum. Mixing that to try to make the kick drum, the bass guitars, heavy low-end guitars really stand out and be individual and eliminate that low-end flub or pulsing boominess is kind of key. Instrumentation on the entire album, I referenced Rivers of Nile, where Owls Know My Name, and Animals as Leaders' self-titled album. Due to us kind of having a smorgasbord, if you will, of gent and prog, especially really up front, but additional elements of like trap and EDM, orchestral music, industrial being present. For this track in particular, though, the hardest parts were actually getting the guitars and cymbals to sound correct.
The rest of the album was tracked using DI and amp sims, but for this we used a real amp. It's going to be a different tone. Finding a way to make that match the rest of the album was probably tricky. I mean, I wasn't the one that did it. That was Nate.
Normally, I would have just gone back to the guitarist and probably asked them to re-record it so we could get a DI, try to create some consistency from track to track to track. But for this one, we just kind of went forward and marched forward and worked with what we had. When I had heard the initial takes, I thought that Jake did a fantastic job with his performances, so I wanted to preserve some of that magic.
As I started messing around with lyrical ideas, looking at the notes that I had written, feeling the song out and the song style, what really, when I got the most excited about like the vocals on the song was when the chorus came out. I felt the chorus was just like with the rise, and it had energy that kind of captured, I felt, what was going on in the song and kind of brought it together.
Jeremy has a voice that naturally sounds a lot like Nergal from Behemoth. So I worked closely with him to try to get a vocal approach. It sounded like it could have been a track right off of Behemoth's album, Evangelion. Especially the track of Fire and the Void is really what I was targeting.
And the thing that gets me most excited about this track is hearing it all together. Because, we did it, this is all 4 of us. This is Jeremy on vocals. We co-wrote lyrics, which I'd never done that before. That was really fun. Reed on the synth and the drum, bass, pretty much everything. And then Nate figuring out how to mix the whole thing.
This is the song that shows in the story the thing that brings about the end of the story. So, how many times can I say story? I don't know. A million.
And I wanted to make just an evil sounding, heavy song. And I think that's what we did.